The planet of Mondas was in trouble, and had been for many, many centuries. As she rolled through dark black space aimlessly, travelling ever so fast and ever so far from her home galaxy, the people living on her crust were also in trouble. The ever-increasing need to survive hovered in constant threat. There was no room for divergence, no room for difference, and definitely no room for weakness. It was this set of issues that brought Adrienne to the physician. Her mental health had been deteriorating for some time, and now was far below acceptable working standards. Plenty of people were depressed. In fact, all of Mondas was far from happy, even at the best of times. But they knew they must survive. In this aim, the preferred treatment was medication and surgery to fix as much of the root cause of all mental issues, the brain. Adrienne had tried the pills. She'd taken the tonics and the topical hormones. Nothing had seemed to crack the case. So today, she'd be seeing a specialist who rarely involved himself in simple treatment. Hello, Adrienne. This has been a long time coming. Tell me, how do you feel?
Hopeful, Dr. Ben-Carnegie. I've tried everything. Nothing works, or at least not well enough.
Yes, I've read all the reports. The good news, Adrienne, is that you might qualify for our more experimental options. Tell me, what do you know of neuroscience?
Not very much.
Well, just like your heart was augmented years ago to keep beating properly and your brother's lungs were replaced, we found ways to work around the shortcomings of the human brain. We have this. At that, the physician pulled out a strange headpiece, looking like highly industrialized ear warmers. The fine filaments of wiring and sharp insertion elements betrayed its true intention, though. An external augmentation of some kind. It was brutalism at its finest. Adrienne tried to mask a horror at the sight of it, as the physician continued to speak. It connects into the part of your brain that controls emotion. All those pesky hormones and neurochemicals we can't control with drugs, suddenly, poof, gone, and replaced by only what the headpiece commands. Freedom from depression. No more thoughts of suicide, no more self-hatred or laziness.
And what else will it do? Everything has a side effect.
There was a pause, as the physician chose his next words. Though his face was calm and unwavering, the ferocity of his gaze and the determination on his face would have betrayed his intentions to someone more observant than Adrienne. There are no major ill effects. A partial mutilation of speech pathways we can fix with a secondary implant. In the end, what really matters, Adrienne, is what price you would pay to finally be happy again. The price was worth it. Adrienne was shown her future vocal implant and agreed to the operation. Some days after she had been drugged to sleep, she awoke. There was no pain, surprisingly. The physician entered her room and sat next to her. Explain to me what you feel.
Nothing.
Sadness, depression, anxiety.
I feel none of those emotions anymore.
Do you feel any pain, any regret, any shock at hearing your voice?
I no longer experience those sensations.
Do you feel happy? There was a pause, as Adrian wondered, and the physician scanned her face with vicious interest.
I do. I am not sad or depressed or anxious or in pain. Logically, I must be happy.
The physician considered this a success, and while he continued to ask questions, he took no more notes. He had the information he needed. Sometime later, as she continued to heal, Adrian found herself observing the children in the nearby schoolyard playing. As the teacher man called them back in, she watched the children play with a cybermat they'd found hidden in one of the trees and laugh. They laughed, and she thought. She tried to laugh, and when she felt nothing, she tried to cry, but still felt nothing.
Dr. Marconi, I do not think I am happy.
Why is that, Adrian?
I do not laugh. I used to laugh. When I laughed, I felt something. Now I don't. When I cried, I'd feel something. Now I do not.
And what does that have to do with happiness?
Isn't happiness laughter and relief and passion?
Perhaps, but only because pain and depression and hopelessness exist. Think about it, Adrian. Happiness is merely the absence of negativity.
I think it would have been better if I stayed depressed. If I remembered why I needed to be happy. I think we've made a mistake.
Don't think that way. I'll be back to see you. As the physician left her side, he began scratching furiously onto his notepad. Unseen by anyone other than himself, the scratches became words that then became sentences. Eliminate memory of positive emotions. Total electrical override required. He paused, thinking a torrent of data streams and talking points through to ensure the success of his invention. He added an extra note. Eliminate the prototype. Back in her room, Adrian had gotten up and went to stare out the window. As she watched the streets well below her, she saw families walking hand in hand with smiles. She saw youths making loving coos to each other as they used their free hours between education and work to bond. And the child. She saw a young child play with a strange crystal wildflower, some odd evolutionary struggle at survival in an otherwise barren landscape. The child hugged the flower to her chest and smiled the warmest, purest smile. And Adrian climbed onto the balcony railing, and without her eyes ever leaving that little child, flung herself down to the ground below, down to the depths of her depression, down to the heights of ecstasy. She didn't hear the screams of horror or the clacking of hooves on pavement. She barely saw the ever-growing pool of blood around her or felt the sparks of electricity coming from her damaged implants. All she saw was the little girl who approached slowly flower still in hand.
Never forget that happiness is more than just the absence of sorrow. Always remember to laugh.
Yvonne! Yvonne! Come away from her! Let the poor thing rest in peace, said a voice the little girl reacted to immediately, for it was her father, freshly caught cybermats in hand. He took her away from the horrible sight, and shook his head at the poor girl whose life had ended, never knowing it had ended weeks prior on an operating table in the science labs of Bondas.